World War I began on July 28, 1914, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire declared war on Serbia. By 1916, most European nations and empires had joined the conflict. The United States remained neutral, with some of its large German-American population supporting Imperial German and Central Powers. According to the 1910 census, 2.3 million German-born immigrants lived in the U.S., and the country had 550 German-language newspapers. The significant German-American presence contributed to the U.S. staying out of the war for the first 3 years. Edmund Kaiser, originally from Bavaria, immigrated to the United States, where he founded an independent Lutheran church with the monthly salary of $50. His community included many German immigrants, some of whom supported Imperial Germany and the Central Powers, as well as Slavic immigrants who sided with Russia and the Antonine Powers. During his sermons, Kaiser often stirred controversy by expressing pro-German views, which led to increased hostility. The threats against him became so severe that church members had to escort him from home for his safety. Late one night, several individuals confronted Kaiser in the study of his home while his wife and 2 daughters were away visiting family in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Evidence of broken furniture suggests that he had fought back before being overpowered. He was bound, carried outside, shot, and left in the bushes near his home. He suffered gunshot wounds to the chest and his jugular vein. Police determined that no money or valuables had been stolen. His body was discovered an hour later by Augustus Schultz and his wife. Medical examiners concluded that he had bled to death from his neck wound. The case took another turn when Postmaster Schneider revealed that Kaiser had received a threatening letter from a woman, warning him to stay away from Miss Mary Krause of Gary. Krause denied any relationship with Kaiser. Chief of Police Hines ordered an investigation into the woman from Gary after police uncovered letters containing threats such as, "Move away or dynamite will move you," and, "Before the leaves turn, you will be stretched on the ground." George Schneider, a member of the Gary Saxonarian, emerged as the suspect after admitting he had been in a fight on the night of Kaiser's murder. He was found with bruises and scratches on his face, further fueling suspicion. The mining town of Ruby was founded in Bear Valley during the 1870s and became a refuge for cattle rustlers and criminals throughout its Old West history. A small settlement, Ruby had only one business aside from mining, a general store known as Ruby Mercantile. Built in the late 1880s, the store also functioned as the town's post office when it opened in 1912. In 1914, Philip C. Clark purchased the Mercantile and later constructed a larger store nearby, the remains of which still stand today. With the outbreak of the Mexican Revolution in 1910, Ruby's proximity to the border made it a frequent target for bandits and rebel forces. Pancho Villa's followers operated just across the Arizona border, contributing to the lawlessness that plagued the region. By 1920, Ruby was in decline, yet it remained dangerous. Residents were advised to stay armed at all times. Clark, believing the threats to be severe, kept a pistol or a rifle in every room of his home and store. In February of 1920, Philip C. Clark sold the Ruby Mercantile to brothers John and Alexander Fraser before relocating his family to the nearby settlement of Oro Blanco. Just 11 days later, on February 27, 1920, the Fraser brothers were brutally attacked during a robbery at the store. Alexander was found lying near the cash register, fatally shot twice, once in the head and once in the back. John, though still alive when discovered, had been shot in the left eye and was unconscious. He succumbed to his injuries 5 hours later without ever regaining consciousness. Authorities determined that the assailants, later identified as Ezekiel Laura and Manuel Garcia, had not only looted the store, but also cut the wires to Ruby's only telephone, which was housed in the Mercantile. Investigators followed 2 sets of footprints and gathered reports from townspeople who had seen 2 unfamiliar Mexican men in the area. Around the same time, a local rancher reported the theft of 2 prized horses and 8 cattle, leading police to suspect a connection between the crimes. A posse led by Sheriff Raymond Earhart pursued the outlaws southward but failed to capture them. Months passed with little progress until October of 1920, when Garcia was killed in a gunfight with Pima County deputies near Twin Buttes. Laura, meanwhile, was eventually arrested in Mexico for unrelated crimes but was never extradited to face justice for his role in the Fraser murders. In August of 1921, the Ruby Mercantile changed ownership once again, this time to Frank and Myrtle Pearson, who lived in the store with their 3 daughters. Despite being warned about the previous murders and the dangers along the border, Frank Pearson believed another attack was unlikely. On the morning of August 26th, Frank and Myrtle went for a horseback ride in the surrounding hills, where they spotted a group of 7 Mexican men riding towards town. Assuming they were potential customers, the Pearsons returned to the store to serve them. However, when the men entered, they asked for tobacco, and as soon as Frank turned to retrieve it, they drew their pistols and shot him in the back. Mortally wounded by 2 bullets, he managed to grab his own pistol from under the counter and fire 3 wild shots before collapsing and dying. The attackers then turned their attention to Myrtle, who had 5 gold teeth. To silence her screams, one of the bandits shot her in the neck, then brutally knocked out her gold teeth with his pistol before delivering a fatal shot to her head. Meanwhile, Frank's daughter Elizabeth was grazed in the arm, but the 3 young girls were otherwise left unharmed. After looting the store's safe and destroying the telephone, the bandits rode out of town, shouting and firing their guns into the air. Once the danger had passed, the Pearson girls fled 8 miles to the nearest neighbor to seek help. This time, when authorities were notified, an ambulance was sent from Nogales to tend to Elizabeth's wounds. A large posse of lawmen and civilians immediately began searching the surrounding desert, aided by a U.S. Army biplane from the Nogales garrison, the first aircraft ever used in a manhunt in Arizona history. Additionally, a $5,000 bounty, dead or alive, was placed on each of the 7 outlaws, as they were suspected of also being responsible for the first mercantile robbery. American police investigated the claim, but no arrests were made until April of 1922. By sheer chance, an Arizona deputy sheriff overheard a conversation in a cantina in Sassabee, Sonora, where a bartender was attempting to sell 5 gold teeth. The bartender claimed to have acquired them from an outlaw named Manuel Martinez. Martinez was also known to associate with a man named Placidio Silvius, who lived near Oro Blanco. Both men were arrested and put on trial for murder in May of 1922. A Santa Cruz County court found them guilty. Martinez was sentenced to death by hanging, while Silvas received a life sentence at the state prison in Florence. However, on July 13th, while being transported in a police car, the prisoners managed to escape when Sheriff George White crashed the vehicle. The car was later found in a ditch near Continental, with White and his deputy L.A. Smith lying nearby. White was killed instantly, while Smith, though still alive when discovered, later died from his wounds. In response to the shocking double homicide, a massive manhunt was launched, involving over 700 volunteers from Pima, Pinal, Cochise, and Santa Cruz counties, the largest in Southwest history. Initially, Martinez and Silvas managed to evade capture, but 6 days after their escape, search dogs uncovered a blood-stained file, which led the pursuers back on their trail. That same day, the fugitives were discovered hiding beneath brush in the Timacacori Mountains, roughly 7 miles from where they had escaped custody. Both men were retried and found guilty again, but the Mexican council appealed the verdict, leading to a legal delay. Eventually, the Supreme Court settled on the matter. Martinez was executed by hanging on August 10, 1923, while Silvas was imprisoned in Florence. In 1928, Silvas escaped from prison and vanished, never to be seen again.